What does it take to be in the top 10% of net worth for your age? You might assume it requires a six-figure salary, a booming business, or a significant inheritance, but the reality is often very different. And the surprising part? You might already be closer to this group than you realize, but the gap between the median and 10% is still eye-opening. Let's start with the difference between these numbers. The median net worth is what the typical person has. Half of people are below it, half are above it. That number alone tells you a lot. You can see if you're roughly keeping pace with your peers. The top 10%, though, shows you what it takes to reach the wealthiest households for your age. That's a bigger stretch. These people often have multiple investments, large retirement accounts, maybe businesses, or other significant assets. And these figures reflect household net worth, not individual net worth. That means if you're married or living with a partner, your combined assets and debts are counted together. And just to be clear, when we talk about the median rather than the mean or average, we're showing the midpoint of households, so the numbers aren't skewed by the ultra-rich. This gives us a more realistic sense of what a typical household actually has at each age. For people under 35, the median net worth is around $39,000. That might sound a little low, but remember, many in this age group are still paying off student loans, renting, not making much money, or saving for their first home. People who went to college without debt or were able to start making decent money early on have a head start here. On top of all that, a lot aren't married yet, so their household net worth often reflects just one person's finances, rather than two combined. If you're over $39,000 and you're under 35, you're already ahead of half your peers. Now, the top 10% for this age bracket is roughly $372,000. That's not just a bigger house or a nicer car. That's having a big portion of your income invested, whether in stocks, crypto, or business ventures, plus some home equity or other assets. To put it into perspective, someone with a $372,000 net worth in their early 30s might have started aggressively investing in their early 20s, maxing out retirement contributions, avoiding lifestyle inflation, and maybe even buying a small property or creating a side business that started to grow. It's ambitious for sure, but it's achievable if you start early, consistently save, and let compounding do its magic. But the next age group is where we start to see a surprising shift, and not for the reasons you might expect. By the time you're 35 to 44, the median net worth climbs to around $135,000. A big part of this comes from rising home equity. Today, most people buy their first home in their late 30s, so by the early to mid 40s, they've likely seen some property appreciation while also paying down their mortgage. While retirement accounts may start to grow, much of the wealth increase at this stage is still tied to homeownership. The top 10% for this age group jumps to roughly $1,042,000. That's a huge leap from the median. What does that actually look like, though? It could mean capitalizing on your first rental property, having six-figure investments, or a well-funded 401k and IRA. Some of these households might have small businesses generating extra income. Getting here isn't easy. It requires discipline, avoiding lifestyle creep, and prioritizing investments over short-term gratification. But you don't have to be an outlier to reach this level. Consistent saving, strategic investing, and time on your side can get you there. Think of it as turning your income into a wealth machine rather than just paying bills and buying toys. Here's something most people overlook. This is the age when many households start seeing real net worth growth, not just from their career progress or investing, but from combining finances with a spouse. While most people marry before 35, the financial benefits often take a few years to fully materialize. By merging incomes, pooling savings, and sharing investments, two average net worths can suddenly add up to a total that pushes a household closer to or even into the top 10% for their age. But the changes for the next age group are even more interesting. For those aged 45 to 54, the median net worth is around $246,000. By this point, many people have paid down some debt, built a decent amount of home equity, and grown their retirement accounts. But since a large portion of this net worth is still typically tied up in home equity, it alone probably wouldn't be enough to support a comfortable retirement. The top 10% in this age group sits around $1,956,000, so nearly $2 million. This is really where wealth starts to compound in a noticeable way since it's doubled from the previous age group. Households here often have paid off mortgages or close to it, maybe some investment property, well-funded retirement accounts, and portfolios providing compounded returns. Reaching this level isn't easy, but it's certainly doable with the right mindset and discipline. Many of the wealthiest people in this age range have reasonably high-paying jobs, run their own businesses, or are self-employed, but it's certainly not a requirement. In fact, a study by Ramsey Solutions found that 1/3 of millionaires never earn six figures in a single year. They also found that teachers, despite modest salaries, rank among the top 5 careers for millionaires. Most importantly, this level of net worth usually reflects years of dedication to becoming wealthy, careful money management, and resisting the urge to keep up with the Joneses. This is when you really start to see the gap between people who burn cash trying to impress others and those who just quietly focus on their own goals. While some people may also see a boost from inheritances, it's not necessary. Even without that, smart investing, side hustles, and smart spending can put you on a clear path towards reaching this bracket. Taking a look at the next age group, we start to notice something especially interesting. The median net worth for the 55 to 64 age group is $364,000. This is the stage where many people have either hit or surpassed their peak earning years. Unfortunately, this net worth on its own is unlikely to provide a comfortable retirement, especially considering a significant portion is probably tied up in home equity. The top 10% at this age has a net worth of roughly $2,961,000. Let's imagine, for simplicity, that this entire amount was in investments. Using a 4% safe withdrawal rate, that could provide about $120,000 per year in income. Of course, in reality, much of this net worth is likely tied up in home equity, perhaps between $500,000 and $1 million. People in this bracket usually have a pretty comfortable lifestyle, living in a nice home that's either paid off or has a low interest rate mortgage, driving reliable, newer vehicles, and taking annual vacations without worrying about the budget. Their investments in retirement accounts generate enough income to cover day-to-day expenses and some extras, giving them flexibility and financial peace of mind. While it's not necessarily flashy, their wealth provides freedom, options for travel, education, hobbies, and helping family without stress. Reaching this level of wealth comes after decades of smart financial habits, and often it's the result of two people working towards shared goals. For the next group, we'll put some math to the numbers so you can see how surprisingly doable reaching this level can be. For those aged 65 to 74, median net worth rises to $410,000. At this age, most people are in retirement, focusing on healthcare and maintaining their lifestyle. The top 10% sits around $2,997,000, barely up from the previous age group, partly due to the focus on wealth preservation rather than wealth accumulation. Households in this bracket often have paid-off homes and large investment portfolios. Some may still work part-time, but their choices are based on freedom rather than necessity. This is also the stage where net worth typically peaks. But what would it take for a regular person to get to this level? Let's say someone with a $3 million net worth has $750,000 in home equity and other miscellaneous items of value, and $2,250,000 in investable assets. For someone to reach that level, they'd have to invest about $1,900 per month with annual adjustments for inflation into the S&P 500 for 30 years to have $2.3 million, inflation adjusted. That's assuming no inheritance. That's like a household earning $150,000 investing 15% of their income, or a household earning $76,000 investing 30%. Significant, but certainly doable with the dedication and mindset. Finally, for those 75 and older, the median net worth drops slightly to $333,000, reflecting drawdowns for retirement, enjoying some money instead of making it last forever, healthcare costs, and other expenditures. Top 10% net worth is down slightly to $2,681,000. The slight drop reflects the fact that these people are no longer working and are drawing down on their savings. The gap between the median and the top 10% is enormous, and it only widens with age. That's the reality of wealth accumulation. Those who start building wealth early or leverage investments in businesses wisely steadily pull ahead of the rest. Being above the median is already a meaningful achievement. If your net worth is higher than the median for your age, you're ahead of half the population, a fact that many people don't fully appreciate. What's more, being above the median often indicates habits and choices that tend to compound over time, like saving consistently, investing wisely, and avoiding unnecessary debt. In other words, if you're above median now, you're likely on a trajectory to continue doing well financially. Reaching the top 10%, however, takes planning, discipline, and time. You don't need to be an extraordinary investor or inherit a fortune, but consistent investing, avoiding lifestyle inflation, and making smart choices are essential to get here. Wealth is more than just having a big number in your bank account. It's about the flexibility to make choices and handle life without stress. For someone who begins early, makes a reasonably good income, and spends and invests wisely, reaching the top 10% is nothing insurmountable. So, what category do you think you'll fall into, and what would it take to get to the top 10%?